So basically, a few years ago, I wanted to make a study guide for my students that they could review the night before the STAAR test that kind of just showed you everything that you could possibly see on the STAAR test. There's not like a ton of examples, there's no problems to solve. It's just like a quick glance at what the STAAR test covers. So that's what we're going to. Okay, so the first topic we're looking at is that rational number chart. Now, the chart might not look like this on the STAAR test if you see it tomorrow. It could look like any form of this. But what we learned is in 8th grade, all numbers are. So if you see real, it has to be the big picture. Okay? Then we learned that the numbers are either rational or. Do y'all remember the difference between those? Rational can be made into a fraction, irrational can't. These are usually your square roots and pi. You are going to be writing stuff. Then if it is rational, it's possibly an integer. And remember integers are positive and negative counting numbers. So positive 1, negative 1, positive 2, negative 2. And then whole numbers are only positive counting numbers. So the way that I have seen that look on the STAAR test is usually a Venn diagram based on this. And y'all have seen lots of those practice questions. Okay, proportional relationships. Everything right here at the bottom of the page is proportional, and everything on the back page is non-proportional. So what is proportional? Well, we write it on our STAAR chart. Y equals kx. What does the k represent? What does this represent right here? Slope, rate or unit rate, the constant or direct variation. It says to find the k, you can just divide y divided by x. You can also do rise over run. You can also do the slope formula. These are all ways to find the rate. And then if you see the words varies directly, what are you going to do? I should hear everybody louder. If you see the words varies directly, what are you going to do? And then once you make a box, how do you solve it? Cross multiply, then what do you do if the numbers are fractions? Just use your alpha y equals button, right? What if the answers are fractions and your calculator gave you a decimal? You can either turn the answers into decimals or turn it into a fraction, right? Whatever's going to work. Okay, how do you know if things are proportional? Look at the bottom. You could have a table, a graph, or a situation. How do you know if they are proportional? To know if a table's proportional, if it has 0, it has to have 0 what? And if it doesn't have 0, the other way to know is to simply divide. When you divide y divided by x, you have to get a, right, so everybody look at this table. What's 4 divided by 1? 4. What's 8 divided by 2? 4. What's 12 divided by 3? Do you see how I got a constant? That means this table is proportional, and if I wanted to write an equation, it would be y equals 4x. There would be no plus b because it's proportional. Are we good? All right, on a graph to be proportional, and guys, 3 years in a row, this was number 1 on the STAAR test. You open that STAAR test, and number 1 was which of the following graphs is proportional? And it has to be a straight line that passes through what? Right here. It has to pass through 0, 0. Now be careful when you read the question that's on the STAAR test every single year. What if it says which of the following is non-proportional? So just make sure you're reading what it's asking for, okay? If it says proportional, it's going to pass through 0. All right, if it's a word problem, which of the following word problems is proportional? It just cannot have a plus b. So everybody look at the first example. Apples cost 29 cents per pound. How would I write that as an equation? Y equals 29 cents X. Look at the bottom example. The bottom example has two numbers, but it's still proportional. Who can tell me why the bottom example is still proportional? Both numbers say what? Per pound. So if I wanted to write an equation, I would just add those numbers together. Well, $1.15 plus 15 cents is $1.30. So it'd be Y equals $1.30 X. Anytime they both say per pound or per night, then those are still proportional. Okay, turn the page. On the back, let's look at non-proportional. And guys, like 50% of the test is proportional and non-proportional linear situations. What does it mean to be non-proportional? It's going to have the what part of the formula? The plus b. The m is still the slope or rate of change, but the b is going to be there, meaning it's not going to start at 0. It's going to have that one-time fee or that starting point. Okay? It says to find the slope, you do rise over run or slope formula. To find the y-intercept, it's just where the line crosses the y-axis, or what is y when x is 0. So let's look at the three examples of non-proportional. On a table, if it has 0, it won't be what? 0, 0. It'll be 0 and another number. Then if you divide, you will not get a constant. What's 15 divided by 1? 15. What's 25 divided by 2? 12.5. Do you see how there's no constant there? There is a constant rate of change, but when you divide, it's not constant. On a graph, what's going to be different between non-proportional and proportional? It's not going to pass. Here's 0, 0. It's not going to pass through 0, 0. And in a situation, it will have the plus b. So it has to have two numbers, and the numbers will not both have per on them. So let's look at this example. A balloon is released from a 10-foot platform and rises 5 feet per second. Only one of those numbers had per. How would I write that? Y equals 5x plus 10. Why did I not add them together? Because they did not both say per second. Look at the next example. The cost of bananas is 65 cents per pound plus a shipping fee of $5. Does the $5 also say per pound? Nope. So how would I write this? Y equals 65 cents X plus 5. Does anybody have questions on proportional versus non-proportional? Okay, moving on. This part right here with all these stars says anytime you're asked to write an equation, or they might say write a function, you must have a slope and y-intercept. You must have these two pieces. Your whole test in 8th grade math is only based on straight lines that are in y equals mx plus b form. All right, now moving on to functions. Guys, don't miss any function questions. They're the easiest questions, no math involved. When you're asked to identify a function, you only look at the what? So I gave you two, either functions or non-functions. Is the top one a function? So I have 2, 4, 5, 6. Why is it a function? All the x's are different. This one is a function. Look at the bottom one. 2, 2, 1, 6. Who can tell me if that's a function? It is not. Why? Because there were two 2's as x's. Y'all stay alive, stay awake, stay with me. Y'all got this is your last day before your test. On mapping, you can either make coordinates, so I would say 3 goes with 6, 4 goes with 6, or 5 goes with 7. And I would only look at the x's, and I would say, is that a function, yes or no? Yes. Or you could simply cover the right side and say each of these can only have one line coming out. So this is the safest way to do it because you guys are good at that. On a graph, you're going to perform a vertical line test, meaning draw a straight up and down line. If it touches the picture one time, it's a function. Did it touch one time? Yep. I do another one. Did it touch one time? Yes. So this would be a function. It cannot touch more than once. Any questions on functions? Okay, turn the page. Okay, what did I tell you guys if you see a graph with two lines that meet? The answer is where they meet. That's your solution. That's your answer. Okay, it might be a coordinate. So who can tell me the coordinate to this answer? What's the x value right here? So it could be 1, 3. Or they could just ask for the x value and it be 1. They could ask for the y value and it be 3. Okay? That's super easy, right? Okay, if you have parallel lines cut by a transversal, the sides opposite are the same. So do y'all see how I drew this line right here? This angle, and this angle, and this angle are all the same. So if I told you this angle was 120 degrees, what would this one be? 120. What would this one be? And what would this one be? Does everybody understand that? But what if I told you this angle was 120 and I wanted to know this angle? You would subtract from, because they're a straight line. So you would simply do, if you want to know this one to this one, it's the same, so you would know it's 120. But if I want to know this one, I would say, well, 180 minus 120 is, so this one would be 60 degrees. It all depends on what they give you. All the obtuse angles are the same. All the acute angles are the same. There's 4 obtuse, and they're all across from each other. There's 4 acute, and they're all across from each other. Are we good? Okay, what if you have a picture like this? They're going to ask about the outside angle. It's called the exterior angle. I put this outside angle is equal to these two angles added together. So if I said this angle was 20 and this angle was 45, how would you know this angle? What would you do? Simply add those together. 20 plus 45 is equal to 65. So this one would be 65, which obviously that's obtuse and I made up those numbers. So wake up. This is your last day. If you don't want to be in summer school, I suggest you pay attention. All right, turn the page. When you're dealing with similar figures and they ask for a ratio, you're going to use what? Colors. You have pencil tools on the STAAR test. But for right now, I'm just going to show you that I would mark the sides the same. Like this side goes with this side. This side goes with this side, and you would just use another color. You don't need actual highlighters because it's on a computer. Use the pencil tool with different colors. Y'all remember? All right, moving on to Pythagorean Theorem. Where do you find Pythagorean Theorem formula? On your STAAR chart. What did we learn? The two smaller squares add up to equal the... Okay, so pretend they didn't give you these squares. All they gave you is that triangle. I'm going to redraw it right here. This side is 3, this side is 4. Pretend you don't know this side. How are you going to solve that? Three squared plus 4 squared equals, would I add or subtract? So 3 squared plus 4 squared is 25, and what's my last step? Square root, which gives you 5. Are y'all with me? What if they had given you, and I'm just going to draw it like this because I need space over here. What if they had given you this same triangle, but they had already told you this is 5 and this is 4? How would you solve for this side? I'm waiting for somebody to set it up. A squared plus 4 squared equals, all right, would I add or would I subtract? So I would do a squared is equal to 5 squared minus 4 squared. That would give me a squared is equal to 9. And what would I do to my final answer? The square root of 9 is 3. So it depends. Are you solving for C or are you solving for A or B? If you're solving for C, you add. If you're solving for A or B, you do what? Very good. All right, look at this picture. On this picture, excuse me, on this problem, they're going to use the words distance, length, who remembers the other word? Diagonal. If they use those words, you better draw a right triangle. So they're going to say, what is the distance between this point and this point? Can you count that distance? No. Why can't you? Because it's not on a straight line that I can count. But what can I do? So I'm going to drop a line straight down even with this line, and then drop a line over. Can I now count this side and count this side? Because they fall perfectly on those little squares. So this side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. And this side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. Do y'all understand why you cannot count this? Do y'all see you just can't? It's not perfectly on those squares, right? All right, so how would I solve this? What side has to be the C? Yep, this is 6, this is 7. Are either of those the C? No, this is your right angle, so that has to be the C. So I would say 6 squared plus 7 squared equals C squared. Would I add or subtract? Add. So I do 6 squared plus 7 squared. That's 85. And what do I do to my answer? Square root. The square root of 85 is 9.219, so you would just round it. So it's like 9.2. Okay. The only other way I've seen them ask a Pythagorean theorem question is to tell you to draw a rectangle. If they tell you to draw a rectangle, then draw a rectangle. So how could this possibly be a Pythagorean theorem question? What would they ask? For the diagonal from here to here. What did I just really make? 2 right triangles, right, that are exactly the same. And they would have to give you those 2 numbers. Does that make sense? It'll say, like, you have a rectangular window frame. What's the diagonal of it? Okay, so it's anytime it says diagonal, length, or distance, you can draw a right triangle. All right, moving on. The other last way Pythagorean theorem could be asked is it a right triangle? Are you solving for a missing side? No, they gave them to you. So there's no solving. It's just a yes or no question. Do y'all remember how to set it up? You would say is 6 squared. Anybody? Plus 8 squared equal to, do I square root anything or just see if it's true? So I type this in my calculator and I type that in. 6 squared plus 8 squared is 100. 10 squared is also 100. So would those three numbers form a right triangle? Yes. So how would I set this one up? 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 7 squared. Type that in, you get 25. Type that in, you get 49. Do those equal each other? So would these three numbers form a right triangle? Nope. Any questions on that so far? Okay, for this section, you are going to want a star chart and your calculator. Anytime you're asked for surface area or volume, what do you have to refer to? Your star chart. Now, before your test starts, you make sure that you have filled out your star chart like we've practiced, right? And you also make sure, what does it have to say at the top? Grade 8 math. Just in case there was a mistake made, you need to make sure you have the correct star chart. The only two formulas you were to change were volume of a cylinder and a, so you should have changed that to pi r squared h and 1/3 pi r squared h. We've practiced that a million times, right? All right, here we go. For a cylinder, write that here, you are responsible for both surface area and volume. Do y'all see how on some shapes I put an X? Do y'all see that? That's because on a rectangular prism in 8th grade, you're not going to be asked volume. That's a 4th grade question. So I put an X there because you won't even be asked that question. Okay? So here we go. For a cylinder, how would you find surface area? Where are you going to go? So I go to my star chart and I find the word surface area. Which shape do I want? There are two formulas. You have to read the question. Do they want lateral or do they want total? If they don't say either of them and they just say, what is the surface area, which one would you pick? Total. So I said, hey, what's the surface area of this cup? What am I really asking for? The whole thing. Okay, so if they're never specific, always pick total. They will say the words lateral if they want you to do lateral. Okay, so write that formula down. 2 pi RH, write it right here, plus 2 pi r squared. All right, to use this formula, there's only two things you need. An R and a what? The radius comes from the circle. Radius goes halfway through. Did they give you a radius? All right, so how would I do this? 2 times pi times what's the r? Times what's the height? Plus 2 times pi times the r again to the second power. And then I want y'all to type that in your calculator, and that's your answer. Tell me if y'all got the same thing as me. 477.52? And that's your answer. Easy? All right, how would you find volume of a cylinder? Where would I go? Star chart. What section? Volume. Go to cylinder. What's the formula for this one? Pi r squared h. So that's what I write down. Very different formulas because they're asking for different things. Same exact shape, one surface area, one's volume. All right, so I would do pi times what's the r squared? What's r? 4 squared times what's the height? And I type that in my calculator. So pi times 4 squared times 15, 753.98. Easy or hard? Easy, right? So in my opinion, cylinders are one of the easiest shapes. Put a star by it. I don't want you to miss them. Skip the prisms. We're going to come back because in my opinion, those are the most challenging ones. Go to the cone. Put a star by it. It's super easy. And write cone. Okay, why did I put an X under surface area for cone? Why did I put an X right here? There's no surface area of cone on the 8th grade test, okay? There is surface area of a cone, not on your test. But you will have to find the volume of a cone. So go to your star chart, find the formula for volume of a cone. So here's volume, cone, write that formula. 1/3 pi r squared h. What do I need to fill in for this formula? An r and an h. Did they give me the radius? What is the radius? So I have 1/3 times pi times 3 squared. What is the height? What is the height? 11. Type that in your calculator and that's your answer. So my answer is 103.67. Okay, go down. What's this shape called? This is called a sphere. Put a star by it because I think it's easy. Okay, there's an X next to surface area because we don't do it. So go to your star chart, find volume of a sphere. Everybody go to your star chart, find volume of a sphere. What is the formula? 4/3 pi r, not squared, cubed to the 3rd, right? So please be careful you don't put squared. 4/3 pi r cubed. This is the easiest formula because all you need is an r. Did they give you the radius or is it the diameter? The radius. So do I need to divide by 2? No. So I'm doing 4/3 times pi times 6 to the 3rd power. So I'm going to go type that in my calculator. 4/3 times pi times 6 to the 3rd power. There's my answer, 904.78 if I round. Those will be multiple choice. You don't even have to worry about rounding. Just know that they're going to round. Okay? Now, don't turn the page because we still got to do these two. Please don't forget, if they go all the way across the circle, what do you have to do? Yeah, to get the radius, you have to divide by 2. Okay, so out of all the shapes, in my opinion, cylinders, cones, and spheres are the easiest. Don't miss them. If they give you a prism, there would only be one triangular prism and probably one rectangular prism. The rectangular is the easiest out of those two, and this one's usually the most challenging. Okay? If you miss these, but you get all the other ones right, then you're okay. But let's go do surface area of this. This is called a what? A rectangular prism. Where am I going to find the formula for this? Star chart. So I go to surface area of a prism. Do I want lateral or total if they didn't tell me? Yep. So write pH plus 2b. What if they said lateral? What would I have written? Just pH. That's my favorite. If they say lateral, get excited because you don't have to go find the B. All right. What 3 pieces do I need? I need a P, an H, and a B. Remember to find the height. Look at how tall it's standing. How tall is this standing? 6. Once you find the height, what do? Mark it out. You'll never use it again. You don't even want to be able to see it. All right. Perimeter of the base. Well, here's your base right here. It's a rectangle down here, right? So if this side's 11, what's this side? If this side's 5, what's this side? So how do I find the perimeter? Add 11 plus 11 plus 5 plus 5, which I think is 32. What does big B stand for? Area of the, and y'all remember we wrote big B right here, meaning you can come find the formula for big B. It's a rectangle, so it says to multiply the two numbers. So what is 11 times 5? 55. Now you just plug it in your formula. P times H plus 2 times B. Which is 302. Like I said, if you get the cylinder, cone, and spheres right and you miss that one, it'll be okay. You'll be just fine. This is the hardest one in my opinion because it's a triangular prism. The P and the H will be easy for you, but the B usually makes people frustrated. Same formula, pH plus 2B. So what do I need? A P, an H, and a what? And a B. How did I tell y'all to find the H? Cover up the triangles. What are you left with? That's your height. Once you write it down, what do? Mark it out. How do you find perimeter of a triangle? So 5 plus 4 plus 3. 12, right? This is the hardest part. This is the part everybody freaks out on. They want to just multiply two numbers because they're used to rectangles. But that's not a rectangle. That's a, what's this base right here? No, what is this? It's a triangular. It's a triangle. So when I go to big B, what do I need to find? Triangle. What does the formula say to do? 1/2 times B times H. That's my thing. 1/2 times B times H. How did I tell y'all to find the B and the H? Find the right. Here's my right angle right here, yes? What two numbers are making this right angle? 3 and 4. So I'm doing 1/2 times 3 times 4. What's 3 times 4? 12. What's half of 12? 6. Could you do that in your calculator? Yes. So I'm doing P times H plus 2 times B. Which is, I think, 144, yes? Okay, any questions on surface area and volume? Turn the page. When you solve an equation, how do you do it? Put it in your, where do you go? Then you hit second trace option 5, enter, enter, enter. So the left side goes in Y1, the right side goes where? Y2. So everybody go try it if you need to practice it. So I go to Y1, I put in 20 plus 30x. Go to Y2, put in 36 plus 28x. Second trace, option 5. What do I do if I cannot see the intersection? Zoom out. Now watch, everybody, because I'm still having people get issues. I hit zoom out. Did anything happen? I have to hit enter for it to actually zoom out. Now it will work. Second trace, option 5, enter, enter, enter. And there's your answer. Intersection, x equals what? Does it matter if there's fractions in this stuff? No, just use your alpha y equals button. What if the equation looks like this? What do you have to do first? What do I have to do? Y'all have to speak up. I can't hear you. What does this mean? So what are you doing? You're writing it, right? So there's 3 x's, so 3x. What does this piece mean right here? Minus, how many are there right here? 2. What does this piece mean? An equal sign. And how many ones are here? Could I solve this the exact same way? This side would go where? y1. This side would go where? y2. Second trace, option 5, enter, enter, enter. All right, your transformation rules. If you go over anything tonight, this is what I would go. That's a horrible start. This is what I would go over. I don't know why, but they throw this all over your test. So make sure you're good. A translation is a slide. So right is positive, left is, up is positive, down is. Okay, this rule is an adding and subtracting rule. So if I said, let's do a little example. If I said up 6, left 2. Which axis moves up? The y-axis. So this would be y, and up would be positive. That would be y plus 6, right? Which axis moves left? So x, left would be negative or positive? Minus 2. So my rule would be x minus 2, comma, y plus 6. The x goes first because in a coordinate, the x always goes first. Are y'all good? A reflection. You got to memorize reflection. When you reflect across the x-axis, the x stays the y becomes opposite. So look at the rule. X stays the same. You'll see the x stayed the same. The y became negative. When you reflect across the y-axis, the y stays the... So look at the y's. Did they stay the same? Yep. Did the x become opposite? The rotation, you're going to draw happy face man. Yes? Okay, if you want to look at it, happy face man, you have to make it look like this. 90 degrees clockwise would be one spot here. So you would rotate your paper until it's there. Did the x and y axis switch spots? Yep, so it would be positive y since it's on the right. What would this be? Negative x. So happy face man will work for all rotations. These 3 preserve congruence. All of that preserves what? Meaning it keeps it the exact same. Which one does not preserve congruence? Hello? Dilations do not preserve congruence. I promise that's going to be a question on the test. Dilations do not preserve congruence. Because they make a shape bigger or smaller. To make it bigger, an enlargement, you got to multiply something bigger than 1. To make it smaller, you multiply by something less than 1. To find the scale factor, what do? New over old. It's always a multiplication rule. Okay, this is your last page of your review. At the top, mean absolute deviation, if there's even a question on it. Sometimes they don't even ask it. If there's a question, there will only be one question. Okay, but it's easy, so get it right. How many steps are mean absolute deviation? 3 steps. First step, find the average. Add them, divide. Second step, subtract to make a new list of numbers. And third step, average the numbers. Okay? And if you want to practice that tonight, there's your little example. Simple interest solves for, if it asks for the total, you got to take your answer and add it back to the money they started with. So for example, let's do an example. A deposit is made for $350 at 3.2% simple interest. So PRT. What's the P? 350. So 350 times, what do I have to do to this percent? 0.032 times the years, 3. So I just type that in my calculator. 350 times 0.032 times 3 is $33.60. Please use your common sense. If you started with $350 in the bank, in 3 years, if you don't take any money out, don't tell me you're going to have $33 in that bank. Somebody stole from you. Does that make sense? If they say, how much interest did you make, would that make sense? If they said, is that your total balance, would that make sense? So how would you find the total if they wanted the total? Take the money you started with and simply add that into it because you made that money. Does that make sense? You have to use common sense on those questions. Then compound interest. Different formula, and compound interest already solves for the what? It already solves for the total balance. So let's do this example and then we're done. P, open parentheses, 1 plus r to the t power. My P is 2500. 1 plus, change that to a decimal. Type that in your calculator. $3,073.64. Now, common sense, if I start with $2,500 in my account, do you think I made $3,000 in interest, or that's probably my total? That's my total. So if it says, what would the total balance be? Well, guess what? I already solved for total. What if it wants to know how much interest you made? Subtract it out. Yeah, that's some common sense. Just you've got to know simple interest solves for interest. Compound interest solves for total. What is the only thing I ask that you guys do tonight with this? Look over it. Focus on those transformation rules. And what else do I want y'all to do tonight? Get some sleep. I want you in bed by 10. I'm not laughing. I want you in bed by 10. Okay? Ask your parents to either fix you a good breakfast tomorrow or have them pick something up tonight at the grocery store that you have at home for good breakfast. Okay? Because I never know what that cafeteria is going to offer you guys.